Hello.
Good morning.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, good. That went away. Do you want to start with quick coherence? Do you
Yeah.
want heart-based?
Yeah. Hello. Hi, Jen.
Hi, love.
Thanks for coming over.
Oh, yeah. It's like flying in like Mary Poppins.
Yes.
Settling. My fellow Mary Poppins here.
Oh, yeah. It's the equinox, and it's so awesome this springtime. And we just had like 1 minute to share about how we both had spring babies, and today is a birthing anniversary for me. 15 years ago, my last baby. So that's particularly poignant for me, and for whatever reason 15 feels even bigger than 16, you know? Like we make 16 a big deal, but 15 was really big for me, and it feels really big for my daughter.
Why did we make 16 such a thing?
I don't know. 4 times 4, I don't know. Something about the numbers maybe, but yeah.
Where was Jazzy born here? Or
She was born here in Duncan.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's a Duncan baby.
Yeah. We ended up, she was 4.5 weeks premature, and after a C-section, we ended up transferring down to the neonatal intensive care and spent, we got to leave there on April 1st. So 11 days down there. So it was quite a time. Yeah. And she was 4.5 weeks early, and my son was like 12 days overdue. So I had a total of 6 weeks of pregnancy difference right at the end between my 2 kids. So that was really, it was fascinating how different they can be. And so I want to talk a little bit about parenting today, because it's totally up for me. And I found a really beautiful quote that I want to share. And I feel like not only parenting our children, but just reflecting on the amount of parenting we received, because that's very impactful for how we navigate life. I have a friend who wrote this thing called, I think they're called Good Parent Messages. And they're all the healthy parenting messages.
Sibylla, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, Sibylla, like it's just coming through the field.
And absolutely beautiful. Like she created, I think it was a deck of cards that was all like, all of the messaging that we should have received, and whether we did or not, how we can reparent ourselves from the inside.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what feels like is up for me. So that's sort of what I'm ruminating on a topic today.
Love it.
Yeah. And you were saying let's start with some coherence. So let's do that.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And it's all coming in quickly. So just find a moment wherever you are, eyes open or closed, sitting, standing, moving, whatever you happen to be doing. Just connect with the area of your heart.
Really helps me to put a hand there.
Yeah, me too. Just start breathing a little slower. Becoming aware of your heart space. Because when we regulate our heartbeat, it sends information to the brain. The heart actually sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the entire body. And so our heart rate is very important to signal the brain into what brain wave it's going to operate from. And as you become aware of your heart and slowing down your breath, let's activate a rejuvenating feeling, a feeling of gratitude. If you have children, if you have a birth story, if you're a parent, think there's an automatic gratitude, there's an automatic love that can come for your baby, for yourself and your baby, for your family. Let's activate that feeling and allow your imagination to just bring whatever image to mind. Brings that love and rejuvenation to your entire body, and just with your breath, spread it all the way through your body. Send it out from the heart space, and see if you can notice what happens. If you feel relaxation, calm, or if brings up some pain or emotion, just accept it all, witness it. Just for the next minute, be in that neutral witnessing space. And smile if you need to. We're sending rejuvenation to the body, to our hearts, our souls. From this place, you can always ask your heart for guidance if you have a concern or question. When we tune into our heart space, we drop into these brain waves. This is where our intuition can speak clearly. Again, this is another level of practice, so if you don't get anything, that's fine, but there is an invitation to listen to your heart, intuition. When you're ready, you can come on back.
I have to say, I'm never ready.
I know.
Opening my eyes is the hardest thing.
Don't open your eyes like you bite your cheek. So cute. So lovable and beautiful.
Yes.
I know. I guess I'm just in a mood. Yeah, isn't it incredible? We never forget our birth stories, right?
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how old we are, how old our children are. I also have a baby that was born in April 3rd, so he's coming into being 19.
Oh.
And we just don't ever forget our birth stories, do we?
No, it's
So impactful to us, obviously.
so life-changing. And if I can share something
Please.
really interesting that I heard recently, this was from my friend Loren's daughter-in-law, Danielle. She's in the study and exploration of something called matrescence. Have you heard of that?
No, but I like the resonance.
It's phenomenal. It's
Matrescence.
matrescence is talking about how our bodies physiologically change when we become a mother, just like adolescence.
Okay.
That when we go through pregnancy and childbirth, we're not the same person anymore.
Yeah.
And hooray that someone finally invented a word and legitimized that with language.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I'm always reading about physiological birth, right? And I learned that our breasts don't actually fully mature. Wait, is that the right way to say it? That there's stages of breast development, and I think which includes pregnancy and the milk ducts and everything growing and activating those tubes, and then into breastfeeding, and then after breastfeeding they change. And it's the same with our circulatory system, right? Like we're born with one, and then it changes again when we menstruate, then it changes again to provide a baby, and it changes again after the baby's born, right? And then it changes again through menopause. So we're constantly physiologically going through adaptations, obviously.
Metamorphosis.
Yeah, which we don't really identify clearly, I guess, like what you're saying, and recognize the energetic and emotional impact on during those stages as well. But I really found
that's phenomenal.
It really interesting to learn about the breast development, because it talked about one stage of it, birth, and then the second stage after menstruation starts. But then including the development into pregnancy and breastfeeding was something that I didn't recognize. Anyhow, it's making me realize.
Because we had the talk in school about puberty, but there's no place where they give you the talk about what happens to your body when you become a parent, because you're past that stage. So there's no group education where here's what everybody should know.
Yeah, true. Yeah. And I guess that's where a lot of prenatal coaching or classes or group information could happen, right? Where we start to understand a little bit more about that. But yeah, it's definitely impactful, because it can be uncomfortable, it can be awkward. I mean, I struggled with body changes, for many different reasons, but as women, we're very conditioned around how our bodies should look, and then going through pregnancy and aftercare, like there's just a lot of changes, and it can come with a lot of different feelings, right?
Absolutely. It's deeply arresting, right? It's just like, holy smokes. And I remember, oh my God, it's like every stage of it. Well, as women, we go through so many body changes. Like just the fact that, like when I had my first child, I was like as big as a whale.
Yes.
And it was hilarious because I'm an adopted person, and my birth mother's story was that she hid the pregnancy.
Oh.
And so to me, I'm just like, how do you hide that? Right? I was enormous. But possibly because I was proud of it, and I could allow myself to be big, and I absolutely love not having to suck in my stomach anymore.
Right.
Like I had been before that,
remember,
because of the conditioning, right? It's like finally my stomach can stick out, and that's how it's supposed to work.
The freedom of it. Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah, that's so cool to think of that. But for me, breastfeeding Ember was a nightmare, right? Because breast, you get a lot of attention, obviously, as a girl. See, it brings up vulnerability, and it's making me think of what you said earlier about parenting ourselves. Parenting our vulnerability is one of the biggest life tools, like vital life tools I can ever share, is because we do need to go back into those spaces and provide that parental love and security and acceptance and reassurance to those sides of ourselves that are still sort of underdeveloped in our psyche. But yeah, definitely vulnerability around breastfeeding, because my breasts turned into watermelons, and I'm trying to feed my baby whose little head is the grapefruit size, and it was just everywhere. I hated it. It was so uncomfortable and awkward because of my preconceived conditionings around, don't show your breasts, or, you know, it's going to attract attention, or, you know, I didn't want people looking at me in that vulnerable space, and it still brings up vulnerability for me now, because they continue to change as I age, you know. But anyhow, yeah, it is amazing to think of it. I think really supporting each other as women through these different stages and changes is so vital, and then having that physiological knowledge as well does bring some acceptance, doesn't it?
Yeah. I remember being in awe of my breasts. It's like, these things have been on my chest all these years, and look what they can do!
They actually have a purpose.
Like, what?
Yeah.
It made me feel like I had superpowers that I just discovered, because I do.
Did you ever see your milk spray out?
Oh yeah.
Like in multiple,
jets.
Because we think that there's just one hole, but
no,
it's like multiple
Just
tubes
like
that form.
Yeah.
And this is what I was learning about the physiology as the breast develops, multiple tubes form, and so it comes out like in this, like, you know, like shower head spray, but you know, but again, like, not every woman knows that until she's in it, trying to, like, you know, keep this baby alive and figure that all out, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, look at what my breast can do.
Totally.
Yeah.
I remember having a friend who have like one of their children reach 18, and I think they did a Facebook post or something that was something like, I did it, they didn't die.
Yeah, exactly. When they're in the baby cave, it's so, like, in that first couple of months, that's what you're trying to do, keep yourself and this thing alive, you know. And being in birth support, I hear so many stories about women and men, like, you know, suddenly just being left alone. And certainly that was my experience.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, just after all the midwives left and everything, because I did have a home birth. It was like, oh, okay, now what? Like, now we have to, you know, keep each other alive. So it is fascinating how...
It's very shocking.
Yeah, how women can adapt, you know, and how it's just like go time, and, you know, we wade through all of that, or run through it, or float through it, whatever your experience is, right? But you just, like, you make it happen, don't you? Somehow we do.
Yeah.
But I think it could be so much more gentle if, you know, we had the village around, because, you know, the term about it takes a village to raise a child, I actually think it takes a village to raise a family, you know, because every single person, parent, you know, other siblings, whatever the unit, the whole family unit needs that support when a new baby comes in, because we're all just trying to keep everyone alive, right?
Yeah.
So
I was really present to the village today as well, just sharing, you know, I wrote a little post about my daughter, and just the different people chiming in, and how precious it has been to raise a child in community, and people who haven't seen her for a long time that are like, she has that experience of going through the world and having me introduce her to people who say, I knew you when you were little, and she's like, so many people knew me when I was a baby, and how wonderful of a sense of place and belonging that must be, to have that container of people witnessing, you know, just people there observing someone growing through life. I mean, it is a privilege to be able to be a parent and have that first-hand witnessing of someone's evolution from the day they came in and watching them grow. And it's also a really special gift to have the community around, sharing that witnessing.
Hi, Coco.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as you're speaking about it, I'm flashing back to when our kids played together at your place on 3rd Street or whatever that was, and how little Jasmine was, and how she, you know, just sparkled through her existence, like little fairy.
That's also how we meet.
Yeah.
A lot of people is because our kids don't have those layers of self-consciousness. They just gravitate towards each other, and it's like, oh, hello.
Yes.
Now we're meeting, right?
Yes.
So it's it was through our kids that we met, sort of. Like, I mean, we met, but we kind of the kids just
brought us together.
Yeah, which they often do. You know, a lot of relationships that I have in this community are because our children went to school together.
Absolutely.
Over the course of many years, and sharing each other's highs and lows and challenges and celebrations.
Yeah.
You know? And in that vulnerable sharing with each other, getting the support from each other to know that we're not alone, that we're not navigating this by ourselves, you know, and
huge.
having like just the things you were just sharing.
Yeah.
You know, having a wise woman say, "Oh, this is totally normal."
Yeah.
You know,
you're okay, honey.
We need
Here,
that.
let me help you. You know, let me, hold the baby while you shower.
Yeah.
And
because we know
stuff those boobs into your nursing bra. Like, yeah, just having that support, right? Mm-hmm. It does make me think about how incredible the first 7 years of your child's life is, because they entray into your energy field. So this is very much a nonverbal field that they're receiving a lot of information from you, unbeknownst to you perhaps. And your child becomes your greatest mirror, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's so much opportunity in that 0 to 7 for you to, as the parent, to see yourself and to grow through whatever is present in order to not, necessarily make it the next generation's tasks to resolve, right? Mm-hmm. There's that incredible window from 0 to 7 where we get to parent our children, but like you said earlier, parent our inner child aspects through what they're mirroring to us, in order then for healing and evolution to happen, right? So that, every generation, we all want to give our children what we didn't have. Like there's that inner drive to want to give our children what we didn't have. If you ask anyone, they'll relate to that. And I think that that's the driving force of evolution, right? Because we do in some aspects give our children what we didn't have, but then we're also faced with those pains of what we didn't have, and it comes up in our field, and it's a great opportunity for us to parent our own vulnerability and do healing and growing. But if we're not in a time or place where we have that support, or we're all chasing money, and there's those things of life that can really be distracting, it's quite complicated, obviously, but it's God calling. But there is that opportunity in those 0 to 7 years, which are the most vulnerable for everyone. And, you without a village supporting everyone, it can be quite challenging too.
I had that experience myself that, when I had my first child, who's making lots of noise and leaving right
Somebody's
now.
visiting.
I was such a different person at 27 years old than I was 12 years later when I had my daughter. In that time, I had done all of my spiritual growth. So I was bringing a much different person to the table. And certainly I remember that moment of, here's your child, have a good life, and it's just like, what? Yeah. I remember it being a while before I really exhaled and went, okay, he's going to be okay. The first little while I was checking him every second when he was sleeping, just to make sure he was still breathing. Yeah. Like, this preciousness of life. Like, it's a complete miracle seeing a human come to life, right? Like, wow.
It's the biggest.
And then, so 12 years later, when I had my daughter, I had become present to a lot of my own traumas that I had gone through. And I spent my first 4 months in foster care. So I didn't come into a field of love. I didn't come into a field of parenting. I didn't have parents. Like, there wasn't that. I was someone's special someone for those first 4 months. And I was so present to that when my daughter came along, that I was consciously reparenting myself while I was raising her first 4 months, like just being in this field of so much love and just constantly and consciously returning that to myself.
Wow, so
because we
wise.
can,
Yeah,
because
that is more potent than any medication or modality or, anything that you're going to get from the external,
Yeah, it was right there in our little crucible, right?
Oh.
Of like absolutely just transforming. I was actively transforming my own life story.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
And you were actively transforming your physiology.
Yeah.
Again, creating, I don't know, like I just see repairing the field.
Healing the
around
bloodline, the ancestral trauma, being so acutely aware of how agonizing that must have been for my mother to part from me, because that bond is so potent. So healing the ancestral field, and that is something we can do.
We can do that.
Yeah.
And just by connecting to our hearts, like we did earlier, and coming into that theta brainwave, because when your heart's pounding, it's triggering your brain to go into, fight or flight, or it's moving into more of the basic instinct part of the brain. But when you can access the theta brainwave, there's so much potential in there for us to rewire our nervous system, to establish a new baseline, so if your baseline is to go into fight or flight, which it could have been as a baby, being, aware of, that lack of connection, like you said, there's opportunity for us to change that through just connecting in that way and repeating it. Like that practice is so profound, because you can really heal yourself in that way. And that's why I'm always like encouraging, to the practice, but also to talk about what did you notice, or what worked or what didn't work, or what's showing up for you, because it's so important, to be able to navigate, to get to that place where you can feel that physiological shift into relaxation. But it is parenting yourself, and that's what we're talking about too. It really is something that I think we're all very acutely aware of right now. It's like parenting our vulnerability, parenting ourselves, showing up for ourselves in those ways that we didn't get in those critical developmental times.
I think I've heard that there's a book that's called Parenting from the Inside Out.
Yeah.
Which I still am intending to read.
Well, I don't know if anyone's ever said it before, because when you tap into the field, but parenting the vulnerability is my term that really is connecting me to what you're saying there about that book, because it really is masculine and feminine energy that we can give ourselves, through that connection to heart, and through the theta brainwave. So if you didn't have a connection with your mother, then you can evoke those feelings of nurturing, or your father, those feelings of safety and protection. It's something that I do a lot of.
And we can do it
anytime.
It doesn't have to happen in the birth time. Like that moment of doing that is now 15 years in the past. However, it's if you haven't had kids, if there's been rupture in terms of pregnancies and births that may or may not have happened successfully, things like that. It's not only through our children that we can heal. So we can identify those moments of rupture, and I like to see it as time traveling. We can time travel to go and visit those parts of ourselves and give ourselves what we didn't get. We can time travel into the deep past when we were children and give ourselves the parenting that was missing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we don't really have like our brains don't really recognize past, present, future,
Right.
you know, so you can go in through these different brain waves, through heart-brain coherence, I feel, and recreate the situation just like as you say, you know. I was doing that today because my son's in Calgary and he's sick, and going into the field and making change energetically. It doesn't have to be, like you say, in the moment. It can be 20 years later, you know.
Yeah.
And you still there's still impact because we are energy first. You know, we are energy first because it's, you know, what draws the sperm to the egg, you know, that is energy, that is frequency, that isn't conscious thought, you know, that isn't chemical induction, that is energy. And then when the sperm finally makes it to the egg, there is this flash of light that happens to the egg, and it's really related to zinc, which is really cool. Anyway, there's this big, you can look it up, and there's this igniting light of energy that occurs, and that's when the egg is fertilized. And so, you know, then, you know, we're this egg, and then what starts the cell division? That's energy, that's intelligence, that's what we're talking about here. We're accessing that that intelligence, that energetic intelligence through connecting our heart-brain coherence, through accessing that. I can't speak, but you get me.
Yes.
So we can really, we are energy first, and then we're, I think, emotion, and then physical body, you know. So it's interesting to look at our development that way, but we are energy first, absolutely.
Beautiful.
So we have so much power when we can access our energy body and work with it. There is no timeline. We can make a huge difference just by
in any moment
being present to that.
And I feel like sharing something.
Oh, good.
So I'm just going to get this because it's right here. So I want to share with you.
Hi, everyone.
This is my representation that I have on my altar. So it's just right there.
Oh, 3 babies.
Right?
All in one.
So that's my baby self. That's my child self. And this is my mom. Taking care of me, and like, yeah, she's like the protector here. This is my little totem pole here of healing my inner children. So, you know, I love having this representation right on my altar because it reminds me that I'm not alone, and that I am reparenting myself.
Yeah.
It really can be that simple.
And that there's so much, you know, that's where we can call on the ancestors, is knowing that they're in the energy realm too, right?
Yes, and a lot of the time when we talk about spirit contact, we talk about it being with those who have passed on. And I just want to say out loud that we can do spirit contact with people who are in body.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have to just be with people who are on the other side.
Yes. Oh, wow.
I had a whole, like, this is a whole other talk, but while I was pregnant with my daughter, in fact, 3 years before she was conceived, I started soul talking with her.
Yes.
So she was in the astral realm.
Yes.
And then when I was pregnant with her, I would talk with her, you know, soul to soul. And she consistently showed me the yin yang, so I knew she was going to be born on the equinox, which she was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then afterward, when we ended up with her going into the medicalization and the neonatal intensive care, that line of communication was already established. So I was soul talking with her there, saying like, what WTF are we doing here?
Yeah. I'm here, you're okay.
And I got a clear answer, right?
Oh.
So that is a really beautiful form of communication between parent and child that you can establish. And it's so helpful when they're nonverbal in their first couple of years too. It's like you can find answers talking soul to soul with your child as well. So that's just a whole other dimension. I'm just gonna throw
Yeah,
in
well,
there.
I think it's so relevant to what we're talking about, right? Because in our little coherent practice there, I was like, well, this is an invitation for you to connect with your heart and get guidance. I think from that's what you're describing is you had a channel of communication through your being to hers, and I think it's very relevant what you're saying, because that is again where we can have so much power. I don't know why I don't want to use that word, but we can
I
have.
get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It is empowering.
It is
To
a
feel that
beautiful.
we can have communication that is nonverbal, that's on a different level. It's super empowering.
It's yeah, and the nonverbal communication, you know, is so powerful too, because what we're putting out, like I was saying about the kids, they pick up that nonverbal information. What we're putting out into the field, consciously or unconsciously, is valid, and people around you are going to feel it. That's relational energetics. And so it's so important to be responsible for what you're putting out, and understanding that every person you're in relationship with is a mirror of your inner world, and to find that gratitude for that person, that child, to mirror yourself and give you the feedback and understand where to go for your own healing, you know. So yeah, it's absolutely what you're saying is completely a part of today's talk. But yeah, very much, you know, it's such a big topic that we could very much talk about it again and again. But I love it. I'm in awe of that, right? Yeah. And it's so, you know, important to I don't know, like I'm just so passionate about being with women and their birth stories, right? Because yeah, there's so much potential there to to work with, if you know what I mean.
agony and the ecstasy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, my mind was
very
being
heightened.
flooded there with, you know, stories and information. But you know, like and then, you know, what you were saying about the medical aspect of it, we again need to work with integrative healthcare mindset, you know, because sometimes you need that intervention, obviously, and you know, and we can really be grateful for it, but then also there's the side where the medical world needs to stand back and stop dehumanizing birth, because that's a problem. Anyway, again, another conversation. But you know, birth has been dramatically medicalized, and you know, women and babies have been tortured and died in the hands of birth becoming profitable. And you know, we need to think of this seriously, because depending on how the mother and baby are treated and how they bond, and then what their community support is like, it shapes our world. So
Right.
it shapes our world, yeah. And so we really need to be smart and say, okay, it's time to have healthcare integrated. The wise woman in the birth circle is welcome with the doctors, and you know, the birthing mother is at the forefront of all of us, working for her and following her intuition and her innate intelligence that is driving her whole pregnancy and birth and delivery. And we need to remember what a difference we can make if we're all standing behind her and her partner in that moment.
Yeah, if she's at the forefront, then whatever medical services are supporting that instead of trying to lead with that, and knowing that in actually curating, supporting, and shaping these moments, that we're actually creating the world that we're living in.
We're creating the world.
Because we're creating how these new humans are coming in, and what sort of access they have to love and compassion and gentleness and all of it.
All of it, and their medical health as well, you know, and it's just a really critical, potent time for us to, create the world we want to live in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm kind of feeling like we're coming to a conclusion.
Yes.
Point.
It's birthday time for Mommy and Jasmine today.
So I want to share with you really something so beautiful that crossed my path this past week.
I love it. I'm
And
hold my heart as you
just,
read it.
hold your heart, and I want you to just hear this and receive this for yourself as healthy parenting coming your way. And this is a letter that was written by a man named Dalton Trumbo in 1957. And it's a letter to his 17-year-old daughter.
Oh.
And I might cry.
I don't have a tissue. Oh, I do.
You have tissues, yes. They're always
Ready.
close.
Ready, Sarah.
Arms.
I got you.
Okay. So allow this to land as the good parent message that everyone deserves to hear. You have, in common with every child who ever grew up, made minor mistakes. I repeat, minor. But are you also aware that regardless of those small concerns we may have felt from time to time about your development, and all parents feel such concern, you have given us so much more happiness than discontent in a ratio of roughly 1,000,000 to 1, that we shall never be able to reward you adequately for having entered our lives. We wanted you, took measures to have you, got you, and are forever the winners. Thank you, Dalton Trumbo, 1957. I love that. You've given us more happiness than concern in a ratio of about 1,000,000 to 1.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what we need to remember. Oh, I love it. It moves me.
That is beautiful to tap into that, because it's such an energy of acceptance and honoring the presence and just the reality of
What a
them
gift.
being present, right?
What a gift we are.
Wow, it's really true.
Isn't that gorgeous?
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Because it's bringing me all the way back to that moment of conception again, and realizing that spark of light and what a miracle that is, and that there is a driving energy that's bringing us all forward. And that in itself is enough. It's more than enough. It's a miracle. Yeah.
So, thank you for being with us on this day of miracles.
Yeah, all you miracles out there, all you babies, we love you.
We do love you.
Celebrate today as much as you can, even if it's just a moment of breathing and saying, yes, I'm here and I'm enough.
Yes, and I'm meant to be here.
Spark of light.
Thank you, loves.
Bye for now. Amazing how fast a week goes.